we had a great year of what is it called? Uh-huh. Okay, thank you. We had a great year of COVID, and we went from what the Delta to the Omicron. Okay, we're now in the Omicron age, and who knows what good things come up ahead. I received a call today from my niece, and she told me she was in contact with two people who had COVID. Okay, who were tested positive for COVID. And I told her, that's kind of suspicious, because this is flu season. This is the season to be jolly, right? And so it just happens that these people started feeling some symptoms, so they went and got a test, and the test came out positive. And the question I've got is whether they just had the common flu, and it's being mistaken for this COVID thingy. I mean, I don't know enough about all this stuff, but it is suspicious to me that nobody talks about the flu anymore. Now what's on the news is COVID. And what happened to the poor old flu? I mean, the flu bug. So, I don't know. And she was concerned because, we Argentines, we drink mate, okay? And we all drink out of the same gourd, okay? And the same straw, metal straw, okay? It's not really a tea, it's a social drink. Social, I call it an excuse. We drink mate to get together. In other words, you don't say to someone, come over to my house and we're going to talk business. That's too blunt. And so what we say is, why don't you come over to my house and we'll have some mate. So that's the reason we're getting together. We're getting together to have mate. And in the course of, drinking mate, we talk about girls and football and business. That's the way it works. So she was concerned, that maybe she could have infected me. But she says she's clean, she's negative, so she doesn't understand that either. So that's the situation. Anyways, I hope none of you get COVID, whatever that is. Maybe it's just a regular flu. Some people have died of it. Maybe there's a stronger strain of flu out there. Maybe it was manufactured in Wuhan, or maybe the American CIA built it and then took it over to Wuhan. Who knows? It all depends on what you want to believe. Right now, I don't know what to believe. All I know, I got the shots because I need to travel and I don't want the hassle. And so I hope I don't need any more boosters, but they keep inventing all these boosters, and then some people say, well, we don't know if the booster works. And I'm talking about doctors saying this, okay? Some people say it works, some people say it don't. And what do you do? Okay. Yeah. Anyways, we not only have a war against the bugs, we seem to be confronting what is known as a civil war. There was a civil war in the United States. What was it, 1860 all the way to 65 until they killed Lincoln. And then now they say we're going to have a second war. And this is what it looks like. Let me put it over here. Okay, and it says the next U.S. Civil War is already here. We just refuse to see it. Okay, so is there going to be another civil war, the right against the left, or the pro-COVID against the anti-COVID? What's it going to be? Okay, and that's not the only war that might come around this year. We might have a different war, and that's going to be one that's gearing up over there in Ukraine. Apparently they're having some talks, and hopefully they all reach, their senses, and they all agreed to, to not have a war. Okay. Then you have that other war looming over there in Taiwan. And I was telling people, because a lot of people are not aware of this, and I think I should make them aware of it. Okay. When I was working at AMD, we worked with a company to which we subcontracted stuff, and that was Taiwan Semiconductor, known as TSM. And Taiwan Semiconductor has become, I think, the #1 company in the world that manufactures chips now. Okay, it's a foundry, what they call, a factory that produces chips. In fact, AMD doesn't produce chips anymore. What they do is do design, and then they subcontract all the work to other companies, among them Taiwan Semiconductor. And being the #1 company in the world, or close to it, or one of the important ones, it's in Taiwan, I think it's in Taipei. It turns out that not only do they produce the chips, the most sophisticated chips you can imagine, but it has the know-how on how to produce them. Turns out that mainland China, the communist China, these folks are maybe a few years behind the West on chip manufacturing, despite my help. They're still behind. And, what better prize is there in Taiwan today than catching or grabbing a hold of Taiwan semiconductor? Just imagine that would happen to fall into Chinese hands. You would be killing two birds with one stone. The first one is that they would be in charge of the company that produces the most chips, or one of the ones that produces the most chips, and suddenly they gain 8 years or 5 years or whatever amount of time they're behind in development, research, R&D, they gain all that time all of a sudden, and suddenly they catch up. So, and right now there's a chip dearth, across the planet, especially for cars. And imagine if the Chinese had the faucet to turn that on and off. They would have a little bit of power, right? So I would say that if the Chinese are going after Taiwan, it's not only to conquer their territory back and say it's part of China. That's like politics. Yeah, that's great. I think there are some prizes that you go after. And I'll just give you an example. Why did the United States abandon Afghanistan? Well, if Afghanistan had Taiwan semiconductor in its place, had all this great technology, the Americans would not have abandoned Afghanistan. Afghanistan was abandoned because there's nothing to steal there. What are you going to steal? Camels? So there's nothing in Afghanistan. That's the problem. And Taiwan, it does have some things. I'm saying the number one thing they've got is Taiwan semiconductor. Keep that in mind, okay? I'm saying that's part of the Chinese plan. I think it is, And so just, for you to ponder. Okay, one fellow says, we must shut down the economy because the capitalist model has reached the end of the line where increased profits can no longer be sustained. We are being led into the slave economy, the so-called, Great Reset. I called it the Great Resignation, or, because a lot of people are abandoning their jobs. The population must be called down to a manageable level where there are just enough slaves. Now you know who you are. You're a slave, right? Modern slave. To run the machines, grow the food, maintain the infrastructure, etc. What I see is a lot of people involved in politics. And all I can tell you is get out of politics as soon as you can. I made a lot of mistakes in my life, and one of them was getting involved in politics at a very early age. I was involved in politics since the age of 15. I would read the newspaper every day at that young an age. And, I went in the socialist way. I was a leftist. No one could have been more leftist than me at the time. I read just about anything that Lenin wrote. He was my hero. So was Fidel Castro, but Lenin was a little more, it was more of a writer of ideas, and so was Marx for that matter. But one thing I learned in my life, don't get involved in politics. Get out of politics. And people like to do politics. They say, oh, the Illuminati, the New World Order people, what is it, the skeletons over there? Can't remember the phrase, but all these people who belong to these secret societies, what, the bones? The skull and bones, that's what I wanted to say. The skull and bones, all these secret societies, out there. And they're saying, oh, they're dominating us. They have all this money, all this power, blah, blah, blah. My argument here, okay, you don't have to believe it, but that's just so you understand the argument. I'm saying there's no one that can do anything about extinction. No one can do anything about saving the economy, the global economy. The economy will fail no matter what. And when it does, not if, but when it does, the rich will be as rich as you are. And you say, well, they won't let it happen. It's like they can't do anything about it. Okay? It's not something they have control over. Okay? The global economy cannot grow forever. That's the issue. And part of the reason for that is you need demand, and what we're not producing is demand right now. We're not producing population, which is ultimately the demand. And so companies expect to sell more next year, and they're going to be selling less and less and less. Their marginal profits are going to be, again, it's going to be marginal profits. Why? Because fewer people buy, and second, most people are becoming poorer. Okay, there's very few rich people, and the masses of people are becoming poorer. Okay, that's just a fact. Yeah, look it up anywhere you want. That's the trend, and there's nothing that can change all that, especially if we all go on the internet to try to do some business, to try to make some money. And so this is the issue. You cannot have people with fewer and fewer real value in their salaries, buying fewer and fewer things, which are important things like cars or houses or whatever. And at the same time, you have the global economy. It's not growing because you don't have people demanding. Okay, so that has to reach a point where, it grows asymptotically, and at some point it collapses. It reaches a zenith, and that's it. That's it for all of us. Okay, so I'm saying no one can do anything about it. I don't care if the Illuminati stand on their heads. Okay, they can't do anything about this problem. All they can do at best is stretch it out as much as they can, and I do pray they do. Please extend it as much as you can. Cheat, lie, whatever you have to, but extend it. Okay, so that our lives are a little longer. And after that, we're all done. Nothing we can do about it. Okay, another fellow says extrapolate means prediction. He's saying that my extinction theory is about predicting. And another guy doubles up on that, and he says the following. Says, Bill, your theory about the extinction of the human species is a prediction. Theory is a prediction. Doesn't sound right, okay? You can't fool people with turns of words or absurd denials. Open your dictionary sometime. Come on. And so, yeah, you look up the word predict, and it says, announcing previously verbally or in writing, right? The coming true of future things. Okay, essentially that's it. And so you've got all these versions: prophetic, divine, paranormal, etc. Right? So you have all these ways of predicting. Okay, some people had a bad dream. They say, "I predict God came and talked to me at night while I was sleeping." Okay, so what can I say to that? Well, here, let me show you. This is my argument on that. And the first one is that we look up this word prediction, and you find some synonyms there. You find prophecy. Actually the verb to prophesy, okay? Predict, foretell, presage, portend, and so on. So you got all these synonyms out there, but all these synonyms are not exactly synonyms. Okay, there are a few differences between them. Like to prophesy is usually, when a person does it through or has as a basis some supernatural thing. At least that's the notion we have of prophecy, okay? That God came in and whispered in your ears, or that, you had a shot in your arm and suddenly you see the light, those kinds of things. So you had a supernatural experience or extraordinary experience, okay? And so suddenly you see the world, you see the future. In fact, if you read Revelations in the Bible, I think you'll see a lot of that. I don't know what the guy was onto, but he saw the future. But where did he get the information? Was it a sound reasoning? Was he reasoning the thing out? Does he have a basis? Does he have a rational foundation for what he's saying, for what he's predicting, prophesying? Okay? And no, the answer is no. These people don't have that. And so that's a little bit where we distinguish what I'm doing, okay, from what these people are doing. Okay, so let me show you something here. Give me a second here. Let me get Madame Bill out of there. Okay, here we have it, okay? Is a theory a prediction? And the issue is no, it's not, because a theory is an explanation, and a prediction is a description, okay? You make a prediction, and here's the prediction, even though it doesn't involve supernatural stuff. You make a prediction, you say, tomorrow at 2 o'clock, there's going to be an eclipse. Okay, we tested, and it turns out tomorrow at 2 o'clock, there was an eclipse. Okay, that happened, there it is, okay? So the guy made a prediction. So far, all he did was describe. That's all he did. He hasn't explained why there's going to be, an eclipse. And you say, well, how did he know that? Well, the only way he knew that, understand, explain, right, is that he's seen or he's been in contact or he had an experience with this knowledge, with this incident, this type of incidents in the past. Past. Okay, what's past? Past means time that happened before us, not the future, the past. Okay, we explain the past, we predict the future. So the guy's making a prediction, but what does he base it on? Not on God, not on the spirits talking to him. He's basing it on, he's saying, look, every 10 years we have this eclipse, and it always comes on the 1st of July, and so this year, 10 years later, 1st of July, there's going to be an eclipse, and there's the eclipse. Okay, so why does he know that? He knows it because of past experience. So he can explain to you, look, it happened, okay, or it's going to happen, or it did happen if once you were there at 2 o'clock and saw it happen, you say, it happened because every 10 years we have this on the 1st of July. Okay, that still doesn't tell us why, what happened physically. It just tells us that, I've been following this thing over and over, and every 10 years it happens, so I know it's going to happen again. Okay, so that's all he's got, but so far he hasn't explained the mechanism. The mechanism would be, what happens is the moon goes in between the earth and the sun, except for flat earthers, between the Earth and the sun, and it causes this shadow. Now we have a mechanism. Okay, so at different levels of theory. But theory is an explanation. You're trying to explain a mechanism. Okay, and that's what this fellow doesn't understand. Or these two fellows. They're harping on prediction. Okay, and they say, oh, yours is a prediction. No, it ain't. Okay, and yeah, it's a bad habit of the religion of mathematics. Okay, and again, they're focusing on the wrong aspect when we talk about prediction in the context of the extinction of man. When I say man will go extinct, okay, I'm not talking about prediction. Okay, you're focusing on the wrong aspect. I'm saying it will because I'm going to be explaining to you why man cannot avoid extinction. I'm giving you a foolproof mechanism for why man is going to die. Our species is going to disappear. Okay, and so the issue is not when. You're focusing on the wrong thing when you're saying when. What time? The future. You're thinking of future. No. Think of mechanism, not of time. Okay. The issue is mechanism. The issue is, what if man encounters the same predicament as the animals in the past, like the dinosaurs, for example, the most famous case, right? Can man overcome the situation with intelligence, technology, ability to foresee events and react to them, okay? Can man do anything about the mechanism of extinction? Because if you cannot do anything about the mechanism of extinction, it will happen. And if it will happen, it's not a prediction, because we're not talking about saying, oh, I'm predicting, I'm prophesying, I'm saying this is what's going to happen in the future. No, you're focusing on the wrong aspect. The aspect is, this is the mechanism we cannot avoid. That's the argument. So when you focus on prediction, you're focusing on the wrong issue. Okay? And so here's a list that I made, just an impromptu list of things man can't do anything about. I don't care how much intelligence man has. I don't care how much technology man has. I don't care if you can foresee events and react to them, and we invent robots and whatever. I don't care. You can't do anything about these issues that I'm going to point out here. I'm just going to give you a quick list, okay? So bear in mind, and you can think of a lot more, I'm sure, okay? But here they are, okay? Things man can't do anything about. I don't care if you're rich. I don't care if you're the Illuminati. I don't care if you're the New World Order people. You can't do anything about this. I don't care how intelligent you are, okay? Having children. We're not going to have children anymore. Okay, we're having fewer and fewer children, and there's a lot of reasons for that. I'm not going to go into all of them, but the main one, I guess, is that people go into the cities. Cities is you have density-dependent birth rates. There's culture, there's money, there's several things involved, and you have fewer children. So right now, the growth rate of the global population is coming down, and that includes the African nations, South American nations, which spit out kids. No, they have big cities over there. You don't have people being born in Buenos Aires. You don't have people born in Lima, Peru. You don't have people born in Lagos, Nigeria. That's all falling to pieces right now, okay? And countries like the United States, Australia, Canada, their population is still rising only because of immigration, okay? So keep that in mind. United States, if they had no immigration, the population would slowly become asymptotic and then fall, okay? We can't do anything about inbreeding, okay? Meaning that we're going to suffer more loss of genetic diversity. Okay, we don't produce more diversity; we produce less and less because of inbreeding, and whatever mutations we have accumulate a lot slower than the inbreeding kills. Okay, that's my argument. You don't have to believe it. I'm just saying that's what I'm proposing here. Okay, and so these are things man can't do anything about. We have to inbreed. We can't sleep with gorillas. We can't sleep with chimps. There's no other humanoid or human-like creature with which we can have sex. We can only do it with each other, and we've been doing that for 200, 300,000 years. So we can't avoid inbreeding and the consequences. Increase in homosexuality, we can't avoid that either, okay? And autism. Autism, I put under autism all kinds of mental defects, okay? I call it autism. It doesn't matter. Some people are schizophrenic or whatever. It doesn't matter. I'm saying you have mental problems. You have physical and mental problems, both. Growing old, we can't do anything about growing old, and I don't mean just an individual, because that's true, but our species is growing old. The population pyramid of our species has been overturning since 1963 as a whole for the whole planet, and we can't do anything about it. Okay, so look it up, you'll find it. Concentrating in cities, we cannot avoid moving to the cities. We're never going back to the country, okay? That's a one-way street. Okay, so we can't do anything. We can't say, you can't have a government saying, okay, we're going to put people out in the country now. It's never going to happen. Not in Russia, not in China, not in the United States, nowhere. Okay, it's not going to happen anymore. We will be concentrating more and more into towns, building them into big metropolises. The little towns are going to grow into cities, and the cities will be mega cities. That's the way it's going. So we won't be returning to agriculture. We won't be. We can't avoid moving into the internet economy. We will move into the internet economy, partly because a lot of people like it, but a lot of people are out of work and they can't find other jobs that are well paying. I mean, if they would triple the salaries, I'm sure a lot of people would go out there and get jobs. And I'll just give you an example. Delta and United, they had to cancel many flights over the close to the end of the year. And American Airlines did something else. And I know this from the inside, right? And that's that they tripled 300% the salaries of any flight attendant and pilot that did not call in sick. Okay, you got that? So if you did not call in sick, which is very standard at the end of the year, everybody always calls in sick at the end of the year because they don't want to work Christmas or New Year's. Those are sacred days. And so people don't want to work. And they say, you got to work because it's your shift. And so everybody calls in sick at the end of the year. And that's what happened to Delta and United. But American Airlines offered 300% salaries, 300% per hour. No one, they were fighting for the trips. The flight attendants were fighting for the trips. They did not cancel flights. So all the other companies like United and Delta, big companies, they had a lot of COVID. They got all the COVID, but American Airlines did not get COVID, okay? They had their flights because the company offered them 300% of their salaries if they would come to work, if they didn't call in sick. And the flight attendants were fighting for, getting on the planes, okay? For working. Yeah, and if you do that with anybody in the economy, you do that at McDonald's, you say, we're going to raise your salary 300%, I'm sure a lot of people will stop having COVID and all these other little thingies, okay? Okay, so widespread loss of real wages. We cannot avoid that. Traveling to the nearest star. Can we do that? Absolutely not. No matter how you stand, you can stand on your head if you want. You won't travel to the nearest star. And traveling through time. Hopefully nobody can travel through time. And we cannot avoid the extinction of our species. Now, how's that for prediction? Okay, I'm saying we cannot avoid any of those no matter what we do, no matter what technology we have, no matter how much intelligence we have, or how much we can foresee events. We cannot do anything about those issues. And you're welcome to fight me, okay, on that. Okay, here's something related to that, okay? What have we done in these last few years, maybe 10, 20 years? We've abandoned the jungle, okay? This was originally, some 10,000 years ago. We abandoned the jungle and went to agriculture. Then we abandoned the farms, agriculture, and we went into what? Manufacturing, industry. A few years ago, we abandoned the factories and we went to offices. Now we're in the cities. We work in offices. We move the pencils around. Okay, that's what we do. And not even that. Pencils don't exist anymore. Now it's all computer, right? We've abandoned houses. We've gone into apartments for the most part, okay? We've abandoned family. We don't have family now. What we have is solitary individuals. Nobody knows even who his neighbor is anymore, right? And we've abandoned dancing and sex in general. We do a lot of visual sex, but not, like real sex. We're abandoning that and turning into games. We're going into games. Everybody's playing games these days. Everybody's an expert on games. And everybody's eating the lotus, like I said, good old Odysseus. His men ended up on an island, the Lotus Island. They were eating a lotus, and they were just munching and just, with their minds out in heaven, I guess. And that's more or less the situation today. A lot of people are, 10 feet off the ground. They don't have their feet on the ground anymore. They have no idea what reality is. A lot of them are drugs, and a lot of people are in worse games, which is worse than drugs. If you talk about one of the big problems of society today, forget about the injectable drugs or sniffable drugs. How about games? That really has gotten the new generation. Everybody's stuck on games. If there's one industry that's booming, it could be that one. Okay, and again, internet stuff. Okay, fellow says this extinction speculation doesn't make it into the top 20 reasons mankind may go extinct. Absolutely right. So nobody has thought about this. Okay, and that's why you won't even find it in the first 20 or in the first 100. I mean, nobody has thought about the fact that the economy is going to fall to pieces and, money will be no more. So, yeah, you came to this site, you got it right. You're going to learn a different theory here that you won't hear anywhere else, okay? You won't find it in the Wikipedia. You won't find it in any blogs out there. This is the only place where we talk about this mechanism of extinction. So you're lucky. You're lucky because you were exposed to it. Not because you believe it, but you were exposed to it. Now you can munch it, and crunch it, decide for yourself. Money is a concept just like inches, pounds, kilograms, meters. Absolutely correct. We will never and cannot run out of concept money. Yeah, okay. Most of our money isn't even represented by something physical. Yeah, because it's concept. So, what you have is, yeah, in a way he's right. He's saying, gold and even dollar bills or whatever coins, that's going out the door. We're replacing that with more abstractions, Bitcoin and, where's all the money today in checking accounts? Where are the checking accounts? On the internet. So let us hope Mr. Putin doesn't go over there and send his killer satellites, because the day he kills the satellites, that's the end of all of us. If he does that, suddenly there is no internet, and that's where all our money is. That's the treasure chest is the internet right now. Okay, you want to know how much money you have in the bank? You go to the internet and check and say, okay, I got $100. Well, Mr. Putin, he knocks the satellite out. You go into the internet and you can't find how much money you had. And what are you going to tell the bank? I had $100. Yeah, they're looking for their money. They're not going to look for yours. Okay, so yeah, it's all in computer systems. Try it through. Money doesn't grow food. Try planting a dollar bill or feeding livestock coins. Yeah, absolutely. So the only reason we grow and grow both livestock and plants, eatable plants, is because the money is what triggers us to do it. Okay, so we're the guys who are doing it because of money. But what is money? Money ultimately is, what does the dollar bill say? In God we trust. It's all faith. That's all it is. That's all that money is. The only reason you receive money is because you feel, you predict, whatever you want to call it, that you can send that dollar bill to someone else. And that person will accept it and give you whatever you want. You want to buy a house? You go with money. And you say, here's money. And the guy says, oh, I'll take that because it has value for me. I believe it has value. So he accepts $100,000, $200,000 and he gives you a house or a boat or a car or whatever. We all understand that. But what if the guy says, no, I don't want your money because it has no value? And you say, what do you mean it has no value? Well, what are you giving me? You're giving me Vietnamese money. I can't do anything with Vietnamese money. Yeah, but money is money is money. And it's backed by the government of Vietnam. So, no, money is not money. We don't have trust. The bill in Vietnam, I don't think it says in God we trust. It just says in government we trust, and nobody trusts government. So, yeah, if someone gives you money from another country, you probably won't accept it, depending on what country. So not all money is money. Okay? And so that's one issue. But the other one is that, if the governments fall apart and, suddenly there's no value out there in money itself because they printed too much of it. Salaries are, so low, real value of salaries are so low that, they give you money and it's worthless. It's nominal value. You get $1 million, but you can't buy a bubble gum with it. Then, then at that point, people start losing faith in money. And they say, look, I'm not going to accept money anymore. Now I'm going to accept goods or food or whatever, but they're not going to accept money. When money falls apart, then there's no control. Okay? There's no control. And you say, well, that's good because now we have government off our backs. They can't control us. We just exchange with our neighbors. Yeah, the problem, you can't run a global economy on bartering, not for food, which is what companies produce today, corporations, agricultural corporations, and they sell them. You can't go to them and say, look, give me a pound of beans and I'll give you a dog. What am I going to do with a dog? We're not in the dog selling business. We can't take the dog and sell it to someone else to buy seed to grow beans so that we can send you the beans. So we cannot run an economy, a global economy on bartering. And if the global companies, the corporations that produce and distribute most of the food on planet Earth don't receive money, they can't run their businesses on bartering. You might be able to do bartering with your neighbor. That's not going to help you at all with the big corporations that suddenly, will not produce food and will not distribute food because they're not getting anything for it, aside from the fact that they laid off all their employees at that moment. Okay, so there's a lot of things going on that you cannot put back together. Once Humpty Dumpty breaks, you can't put them back together. So that's in a nutshell, what you can expect. So yeah, money is just an abstraction. Okay, it's an abstraction, and that's the worst part because our very lives depend on that abstraction, on the faith we have in that abstraction. Meaning it's all faith, and all we have to do is lose faith in money, and not accept it anymore for whatever reason. And that's how simple it is to kill man. We don't need bombs. We don't need to kill each other. All we need is for money to die. And that's it. And we're done. Our very lives depend on that abstraction, on that concept. Okay, a fellow says, considering the Amish started with 500 and is now 344,000 and they're still around, I'd say we could still breed for quite a while if the economy is intact. Yeah, the issue with the Amish is that, they've been around for 300 plus years, right? And now they're having, they're inbreeding and they've been inbreeding for over 300 years. And now they're having problems, physical and mental problems. There you have one group who had problems, and there are a lot of doctors that go into Amish towns and they try to study all the genetic problems that these people are coming up with. And remember, the Amish is a microcosm of the world. Their inbreeding is much faster than the rest of the world because they've held a very tight-knit society. Okay, so within their society, they've been inbreeding there for about 300 years now, 350 years. And yeah, now they're starting to have problems. And we're seeing what's going to happen to humanity as a whole in that small microcosm. Okay, and so yeah, humanity as a whole has a lot more inbreeding to do. I'm just saying that we're seeing the tip of the iceberg with some of the problems we see today, and all the mental problems that you see out there. Some of them are due to the fact that we're in the cities, and you have this density thing that might be a factor that you should consider. But then I think the main one is the fact that we descend from the same people that that had kids 500 years ago, who descended from the people who had kids 2,000 years ago, and so on down the line. So what has happened is we've become more and more and more people, but our genetic diversity has streamlined because those parents of ours who could not pass certain diseases or did not have children because the war killed them, we've been chopping off diversity and streamlining our genetic diversity. And whatever mutations we had along that period of time did not overcome the bottlenecks that we had, the major bottlenecks that we had throughout history. Okay, so that's the theory. Okay, whether you believe it or not, again, we're not here to believe. We're just trying to explain theories, mechanisms. Okay, Fowler says, when it comes to sex, people are into all kinds of weird nonsense. I think you're overplaying the nature part of it. Stuff that people are exposed to and stuff that happens to them seems like a better explanation for the sexual variety. Okay, there must be malleability to sexuality. Some people get off to shoes, a shoe, and that's just more humorous, mundane example. Explain the genetic defect could possibly make a person get a hard-on for a shoe. Okay, so this is the issue. The issue is we can have sex with anything, but we cannot produce children with anything. We can only produce children with other humans. Okay? I mean, if you want to have sex with an ant, go ahead and have it, and good luck there, okay? Does that mean that if you have sex with a shoe, you're going to get a cobbler? Okay, so it's not like, that you can have sex with anything. You can have sex with anyone you want, but the issue is, some people do it with animals out there, dogs and cows and so on, donkeys. The question is whether having sex with such an animal will produce children, offspring. We're talking about offspring here. That's what the bottom line is. We're saying that humans are not producing children. Okay, so sex is one thing. That's, pleasure, whatever you have sex with, is irrelevant. Okay, and again, the issue with Neanderthals was whether we had sex with them, as the geneticists say, because we have 2% commonality in our genetic code with them. Yeah, sure. Here's this ape, Arctic ape, and we went there and we had sex with them. I wonder how they communicated. And the other guy didn't understand. He was just hunting, and he said, "I need you as my supper today." That's the way it was. Okay, here's another file that says, check out Pasteur and Béchamp, or Béchamp. I'll call him Béchamp. Germ theory was Germ theory was debunked a century ago. And yeah, you have the two fighters, okay, and one came, French guys both, and one came up with the germ theory and the other one with terrain theory. And again, with all this COVID, a lot of people are looking into these things. Terrain theory, essentially, without going into too much detail because I'm not really into this at all, but terrain theory says that, for example, I'll just give you an example to illustrate it. If you are sick or you are weak or you don't have the right genes, right, then there's greater chance of the bug entering, a virus or bacteria doing harm to your body, okay, because the body is weak. And that to some degree, I guess, is true because as you get older, we cannot avoid getting old. And as you get older, you have fewer defenses against normal bugs. Okay, so it's very likely that this terrain theory has some level of truth, some measure of truth. A lot of people believe in this, saying, hey, if you stay healthy, if you do your exercise, if you eat well or don't eat garbage and so on, well, you'll have better defenses against the germs. And the germ guys say, well, no matter what you do, if you get this bug go into your cell, just break in there, or the cell sucks it in, it makes copies of itself, and and makes you sick because it makes inside the cell, it makes copies of itself, the virus or the bacteria, and it uses cell material to do so. So I think they both have some measure of truth. At least that's my take on that. What can I say? That's my overall feel for what these two tendencies or these two theories, these two generic theories are all about: German versus terrain. I think they both have some measure of truth. The one that has triumphed was Pasteur's, by the way, and that's the one that a lot of people in these days don't accept because that's followed up with injections, right, with vaccines, and people say, oh, I don't like that theory. Well, the theory could be, maybe it's right. Maybe it's a rational theory that, the bugs enter the cell. The question is, did they enter the cell because the cell kind of drew them in by mistake or whatever? Or is it that the cell is weak and it doesn't understand or lost its bearings and somehow sucks the virus in by mistake because it is weak? Whereas a guy who's got a very strong cell maybe won't, suck that virus in. So that's, is the glass half empty or half full, more or less situation. Okay, final issue on extinction. Here we go. A fellow says, learned the other day that 3-meter gap today. Apparently there is a lack of dinosaur bones before the asteroid layer. You'd think something like that would be more prominent unless there was a narrative to protect. Okay. Yeah, there is a lot of protection of theories out there, especially by the establishment. And so they don't like to have new theories come in there because this is what they grew up on. This is what they learned in college. And one generation, just borrows from the previous one. And so they just keep repeating the same thing. You get a PhD on the same thing. And then now you're up there in the high places. And someone says, your theory is wrong. It's irrational, whatever. The guy goes, bonkers. He says, no way. I got this from Dr. So-and-so. And we've had 20 years or 30 or 40 years of this theory. And so, yeah, there's a big problem with this. And, all he's saying is that there's this theory that says that, or criticism really of the theory, saying, they found out that if you go below the rock layer where the asteroid struck, well, you already find that the dinosaurs were already gone. So the asteroid had nothing to do with the extinction of the dinosaurs. That's the conclusion, right? And here you look it up. I found an article, BBC. Okay, this dates to July 2011, and it says closing the 3-meter gap. Okay, you can look it up. Okay, and what do they say? Well, what they essentially say is they got this from an article published by a group. Okay, and this is what this group says. It says dinosaur extinction closing the 3-meter gap. That's where they got this from, the BBC. Okay, and these folks argue that again that the dinosaurs were already gone by the time the asteroid hit. And again, this dates to 2011. Remember the asteroid theory, the mechanism. At least dates to Luis Alvarez's paper, 1980, that kind of reinforced the notion that already was around. In fact, that notion that some extraterrestrial impact killed some of the animals in the past, especially the dinosaurs, dates all the way to Mr. Georges Cuvier. In those days, the French already thought about the fact that it could have been an extraterrestrial impact. And so, when you look at that, you say, well, this theory has been around for 200 years. So what did Alvarez, him and his son, what did they come up with? Well, what they said, they came up with what is important to the mathematicians. Proof, evidence. They said, oh, we found the evidence. Oh, what's the evidence? Well, there's this layer of iridium that covers the Earth, and that could have only been brought at that point in time, throughout the Earth. It could have been brought only by an asteroid that hit the Earth, and that covered the land with this iridium. And so they concluded from that was the proof, the evidence they were looking for to prove the theory that an asteroid is what killed the dinosaurs. What the Alvarez and no one else in paleontology has been able to prove is how it is that that asteroid was so smart that it could distinguish chronologically how it was that it killed the old species, the dinosaurs, and the stuff they ate, which were all the conifers, and left alive not only the mammals, which are what we are, you know, the new species that governs the planet today, but also what they eat, which are the angiosperms. So the gymnosperms, they disappeared together with the dinosaurs, and what was left were the mammals that radiated after the big guys were gone, and the foods they ate, which were all the angiosperms. Now, how smart can an asteroid be? Okay, so until you can prove that, okay, I cannot tell you what I think of your asteroid theory. Okay,